But welcome to the next working group on the business development services. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation because there has been some development from the last few months since we had the last meetings, and I have very good news that the group didn't stop working. There has been some work done. There has been conversation. We are still collecting evidence. We preparing to kind of see what makes the most sense. So, and I have two excellent speakers today who are also going to share some knowledge and experience with you. And this meeting is 1 hour long. And of course, you're very welcome to ask questions to anybody, react in the chat. I will be moderating the chat. I will be checking what is happening. So this is also the possibility for us to learn from each other. So I think this is the best way of doing so. So I have to kick off, I'm going to present the agenda for today. So as you can see, we will have a welcome and update where are we now. Then we're going to have the key points from the expert meetings that Joanna is going to present. Then we had Klaus, who is an expert on BDS, and he's going to talk a little bit about the BDS and what makes into the good BDS and what us as practitioners should be especially looking at when we're talking about the migrant and refugee entrepreneurship. Then it's KPI and best practices, and I would like to talk a little bit about that. And that also is talking about recommendations. So don't feel scared that I will force you to write recommendations right now. But in general, this is something that I think it's very relevant and can be a nice outcome from the work of this group to look at what is the. I'm sorry, I have somebody. I need to admit somebody, so that's why I lost the presentation. But here we are again. So yes. So for the goals of, and maybe I start with reminding everybody the goals and objectives. Yes, sorry.
Kasia, sorry, if you can put it in the animation or in the version, because I think
it just disappeared. Yeah, no problem. I was just to.
It was a bit small, so maybe
yes. Just a second. I will start sharing again. Me and technology sometimes not very good match. Perfect. But hopefully, yes, great. Thank you very much. So the goals and objectives for this group was to increase the understanding of the needs of migrants and refugees in their way to financial independence. It was also the goal of this group to create a space to share good practices and ideas for MFIs, business development service providers, and other stakeholders to reach the aim of increased financial inclusion of the migrants and refugees, and to work out some solid indicators based on collective experience and recommendation to present to the EU institution when they're trying to work on the policy and a funding solution for business development services. So sorry, sometimes my internet is really low and it doesn't really catch with the next slides. So just a little bit about the project timeline. So how we started with this group. So we had the first introductory meeting to introduce the group members and the relevance for the business development services. Then we were showcasing the good practices from the business development providers. Then we did a lot of the desk research, analysis, interviews as the MFC EMPF. We held in July an expert level workshop. So it was a workshop with the EU institution, with UN agencies, with World Bank, the group, and also with a big networks and academic experts about what states for the good BDS. And then today we have the presentation of the findings from the working group, from the expert group, sorry, and Joanna is going to share a little bit of where the conversation went. Then we have the input on the indicators for business development services, and then what can we do to actually present a sound recommendations to the EU institution. So I hope that sounds appealing. I'm sorry, Joanna, I turn off the presentation because I have another person waiting to be admitted to the group, but it's not anymore there. So I give you the floor to talk about what was happening during the expert workshop.
Thank you, Kasia, and to invite me to do this, as we are part of the working group and have been working with MFC on this. If you can just pass to the next slide. So as Kasia said, there was a group of institutions, individual consultants, experts that have been working in the field, and the idea was to talk about a number of these concept points that are here in this slide, and I'm going to give you a bit of what were the main conclusions or the main the key takeaways that we took from this workshop on 5 July. Just to give you the context, so the discussion started with Kasia setting up the conversation and starting with this difference between commonalities between migrants and refugees, and that introduced the conversation of the experts, and this first point of trying to understand if there are commonalities and differences when we are talking about defining and implementing business development strategies for migrants and refugees. And the two main takeaways were that on one hand, there are a number of services that are universally beneficial for both groups, talking about tailored business consultancy, language training, networking opportunities, but that often refugees and FDPs, forcibly displaced persons, require additional support, sometimes psychological counseling or assistance in securing the residency status. Then we started the discussion about what are the features, the characteristics of successful BDS strategies for migrants and refugees. And from the different experiences of the experts, there were three main points. One is that these strategies should reflect an inclusive approach to financial services that recognize the economic potential of migrants and refugees, irrespectively of their legal status, and so kind of see them as with the same potential as other residents and country nationals. The other feature or characteristic was that these are adapted to the diverse contexts and the specific needs identified in those contexts for migrants and refugees. And the third point was that these services and the strategies for implementing this type of service are part of a holistic support system that integrates nonprofit, social enterprises, the communities, and the financial institutions in defining what are the business development services needed and how to implement them and how to make them really useful for migrants and refugees. We then broaden a bit the discussion to talk on something that is important in the context of the project, as Kasia has mentioned, that is the idea of of identifying specific KPIs for microfinance initiatives targeting migrants and refugees. And one of the main points on discussion was first that it's important to recognize the relevance of measuring the outcomes, because without that it's difficult to define strategies to improve the programs, but also that any impact assessment framework that is implemented needs to integrate both financial and social indicators. And among the social indicators, the metrics related to living conditions, health status, and access to education were among those considered as fundamental to take into consideration when evaluating the outcomes and the performance of the programs. And finally, talking about evaluating and assessing, measuring KPIs, it was discussed the process of collecting and analyzing data. And here there was this idea that was emphasized by various of the experts, that the adoption of a unique client identifier is important to allow to track the customer and the journey of the refugee or the migrant throughout the different stages of their financial inclusion and their entrepreneurial process. And last point, which is also important, is we talked about strategies for engaging stakeholders and promoting collaboration between the different stakeholders, including among MFIs that are working with migrants and refugees. And here, 4 points. One, some of them probably are not going to be any news for you, but this was reinforced during the discussion. First, the collaboration between MFIs, NGOs, government agencies, and community organizations is key to support migrants and refugees, both in their financial inclusion and entrepreneurial lives. There was a proposal for a common glossary of terms related to financial inclusion to migrants and refugees to improve the understanding and the communication between stakeholders, and particularly between humanitarian and development actors, which not always use the same kind of language. Again, it was emphasized the idea of an ecosystem approach that is based in concrete collaborations in the field, and where sharing experiences and lessons through different mechanisms is crucial. And I think there is where MFC, EMFP, and other networks can play a role to help the institutions in the field to get access to these opportunities to share experiences and lessons learned. And finally, there was a call for more robust research and needs assessments, as well as the need for mapping service and financial providers, so business development service providers and financial providers working with migrants and refugees, because it's not really clear who is doing what, where, and without that, it's difficult to identify the potential collaborations between. And I think that sums up. We will send you all these points that I've mentioned in the follow-up. But I guess, I don't know, Kasia, if you have anything to add to this, but I think these were the main conclusions.
No, thank you very much. I think it's very good. And I think, that's kind of links to, I'm sorry you cannot see me, but, somehow my Wi-Fi is frozen right now, so it allows me to only show the presentation. But maybe there are some questions and answers, questions that we can answer with Joanna, maybe not giving prerequisite to the answer. I see you on my phone, so if you would like to react either by chat or just speak, if you have any doubts, please do. And later we go to Klaus. And Klaus, unfortunately, I'm showing you right now, although he's still in the previous section, so don't be surprised that. But if there is anything for regarding what Joanna says regarding the expert group and what we are doing, that and you have any follow-up questions, or something was particularly interesting, and you have a maybe slightly different approach or opinion, please let us know. I don't see any hands nor reactions in the chat. So I think, Joanna, thank you very much for bringing the light to the to what was said. And Klaas, if you would like to go right now and tell us a little bit more about what indicates the good BDS for migrants and refugees, and maybe also because I know that your experience is very broad and you know a lot about the research that has been done. So maybe this is also something that we can hear from you about, from the last point that Joanna said about this business development services and providers who, if there has been any research done. And I see you presenting, so I think you don't see my presentation anymore, which is great. Or you're trying to present.
Okay, can you hear me now, Kasia?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I was surprised. Like,
screen?
We can see it, but it's small. So you can, if you can put it on the bigger version or like slide presentation, that would be probably. There is like if you go to the orange one, there is something which looks like play, and if you press that, that should open it into the full screen.
Is it open share tray? Yeah, you see that I'm. Is this what you can see now?
Yes, we see it small, but at least I see it a little bit small, but I think it can do so.
Okay. Well, you have to bear with me that I cannot enlarge it too much. I would like to start with a few experiences, and I'm very pleased that you have invited me to share some of my experiences, because what I see over the past years is that we are very often trying to reinvent wheels, and in the field of business development services and migrant entrepreneurship, a lot has been done already in the past 40 years with support also from the European Commission and the European Union and the various programs. And I've been engaged in quite a number of them. And I just want to share you a few insights that has been gained over the years, which I think are important to take into consideration if you really want to reach out to migrant entrepreneurs who want to set up their own businesses. And one of the lessons that we have learned over the past years is that if you really want to do something in the field of supporting migrant entrepreneurs, either with finance or with business development services, you have to start thinking at a very early stage, and not so much at the moment that you meet those people, but try to visualize how they act, operate, live, work, and enterprise already at pre-departure and pre-traveling stage. Because if you are managing to think from that angle, you will probably come to understand that people bring a lot of capital with them. Social capital, networks, human capital, knowledge, experience, life experience, and also financial capital. If people either on a short notice or long, already planning very well ahead, decide to leave the country, it's for them very easy to set aside money through the internet, and they will already set aside capital in various ways. And you have to understand that to see also how you can link them to your programs. The next step that what has been learned over the years is that there does not exist one type of entrepreneur. There is a variety of people that want to engage in self-employment in very different ways. It can either be as a part of survival activity, but it also can be because you really have big plans. So it's a long range, and I'm going very fast through this small lecture, sharing of experiences, because it's already well known that you have to take that in consideration. And in projects like EMN, and YMCB that also has been financed by the European Commission. This has already been integrated quite a lot. But you have to understand that at a very early stage, you have to ask yourself, what kind of person is sitting opposite me who wants to start a business or want to engage in any kind of self-employment or enterprise development. And if you do so, then you will probably understand that such a person is very much endowed with a lot of capabilities, capacities, and skills. And that person also is surrounded with a lot of people that will him or her try to assist. This particular picture you find also in one of the reports of the European Commission, the YMCB project. But it shows you very much what kind of persons are really met by the migrant or refugee in his journey from the country of origin to the new country of residence. And that can be ranging from families and friends, diaspora abroad, to at the end, the staff of larger financial institutions. And each of those persons have different skills, capabilities to assist persons during that particular process. And that already starts at pre-departure, and the context with families and friends, they are not lost. So through the internet, they keep on talking with them. And that is a way of accessing also human capital. And it's also a way of networking and assisting people in their journey towards a sustainable business. And when I read the various papers that you have so far produced, there were two things that struck me. One is that you assume that business development services must be linked to the financial services because I got the impression because that's good for the financial institution of the microfinance institution. But business development services, I think they should be focused on assisting people in developing their own skills, their own capabilities, and developing their business. And finance often comes last. And the business development service is a set of quite a number of activities that goes beyond just training, which is often by financial institutions focused on leading the person to the financial institution. Sorry that I'm a little bit, provocative, but I think you have to be aware of that. And also that the business development services are geared towards minimizing risk for the financial institution. But business development services is much more than just counseling and training. It is a process of accessing information, and that can be in a proactive way, but it can also be that the aspiring individuals do already themselves. It is by offering training, either group-based, individual, but also there's a lot of self-learning. And apologies for the two typos in that particular diagram. It is, of course, it's mentoring, coaching, and counseling in their various ways. It's also understanding life experiences that people are building up. That is a part of the business development services that inherent already within people. It's very important element is the networking, and it is the offering of the infrastructure, which can be business hubs, it can be small business units, but the infrastructure is also part of the business development services. And in one of our projects, we have made a distinction, and if you can't read this table out, I will share it to you, but I think the first line is important. We have made a distinction between client development or orientation services that are mainly geared towards raising awareness about all their personal situation and the way they can deal with it. The entrepreneurship development services that are geared towards assisting people in unleashing their entrepreneurial capabilities or reinforcing it. and the actual business development services, which are more focused on really building the business. So if you start thinking in those three elements, you will also then very fast understand that you have to ask yourself what kind of business development service I'm talking about. Is it to lead my client to the financial services, or is it to assist somebody in really building his or her business? And the last point that I wanted to draw your attention to is that you have to ask yourself whether you want to offer a complementary service, so all the services together to the starting entrepreneur, including financial services, or whether you want to offer it in an integrated way, but every time on independently of the others. And that is then related to the question, who pays? If you talk about business development services, you have to ask yourself as well, who is going to pay for the services? Is that an integrated part of the interest rates that you want to charge because you're offering financial services? Or is it that you seek, and that's on the blue part, third parties to pay for all the services? Or are you asking the clients to pay for the services separately or in full? Or do you ask the clients just to pay for the financial services and seek other parties to pay for the complementary services? This all you can find in a number of papers. And one paper might be of interest, and that's of your sister organization, that was published in 2011 by the EMN, with it made already an in-depth study.
I'm sorry, is it me or did we lose class?
Yeah, we lose class. I think it's
okay, because
frozen.
I wasn't sure if it's me and my Wi-Fi or it's his. Hopefully he will unfreeze soon.
Very well.
Well, he definitely keep us in the suspense of what study from 2011 we should be reading. So
I think he disconnected, no?
yeah, he disconnected. So let's give him some time for to coming back. And I think there is a lot of interesting things that he already mentioned about the business development services that we are thinking about. Of course, from when you are organization that it's a financial services provider, you see it in the link with the services that the core services, but we also understand that there are other possibilities. So the role of this group is to also look at what makes the most sense in what possibilities and in what circumstances. So if a big, okay, I think he's trying to come back. Yes, he's trying to come back. Hi, class. We lost you. You're muted. If you're trying to say something, then we cannot really hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
And I think my computer got frozen. I'm now on my cell phone. Yeah. I think I ended where what I heard you're saying that made reference to the study made by EMN in 2011, where
yes,
they made
exactly.
a comprehensive study on business development services for refugee entrepreneurs. I also mentioned made reference to the OECD studies on reaching out to disadvantaged groups, and there are a number of chapters on BDS as well. And I made an indirect offer to prepare a small note for you, if you want, with references to all those original studies.
Thank you. That would be really great. I also have a few questions from the chat. I'm going to tell you. So one of them was from Andre, who asked about there is anything like BDS for dummies for migrants and refugees. Is there any comprehensive study or maybe like a toolbox for of how to?
Well, in the reports by the European Commission of the EMN project, EMEN and YMCB, there are a number of case studies referring to business development services. The same as in the 2011 studies and the OECD studies. There are quite a number of brief descriptions on BDS programs, successful BDS programs for refugee entrepreneurs and also for disadvantaged groups. And often, in principle, a migrant entrepreneur and the local entrepreneur, they are not so much different. The real difference, the only difference maybe, are the barriers. And understanding the barriers will also help you in offering not in the right way your BDS services, because your services are also not so much different if it's on business development. When it's on dealing with barriers, it's quite different. And you have to understand those cultural, political, social, psychological barriers to understand why somebody is running into problems. And in those reports that I refer to, there is quite a lot being said and written about barriers as well and how to deal with it.
Yeah, I also
the question.
Yes, thank you very much. And Andre, if you're looking for toolkits for how to do BDS, Magnet was one of the project that MFC did with partners, and for that we have a very specific toolkits that is kind of breaking different different needs and different things. So I'm going to be I will, after this call, I will share the resources and class if you can add the documents that you mentioned, so the studies. That would be great. I see there is a conversation also in the chat. So Kwashi reacted about your comments, saying that it's interesting. So the finance helps people to put the skills they learn into practice or help them utilize skills more, but skills and finance should not necessarily come from the same organization. I think this is the discussion about who is the best, what's the model for BDS is the best. So you have the parallel model, you have the kind of linked models, or the model. I have actually a slide for that. So maybe
I like to add a comment to that question that said 80% of the people working in financial institutions do not understand the world of businesses. Now, this is of course a provocative statement, but it's very often true. They understand very much on how to deal with financial issues, but they do not understand how it is to live as an entrepreneur. And the way they deal with, say, for instance, requirements of repayments are often not in line with the normal business life cycles, or with the way people are dealing with all kinds of barriers. So I like the remark by Kwasi.
Great, and I see also a very complex question by Juan Luis who is asking about if we anticipating any migration to the region due to climate change, which I think we can say yes, because we have to. That is not really the expertise that we have here. What we're trying to do, we're trying to prepare that if there are another waves of migration, we can really make sure that the system and the people who needed to relocate have the possibility to start living in the right manner and have possibilities to provide for themselves and their families. So I think that's what we're trying to kind of tackle here in this group, to see what practices make sense, what are the good examples that we could maybe replicate, how to connect people to the initiatives, and what if there are already any resources that we could use, and not also because there is, as Klaas said, a lot of good experience before that was already recorded, and that we can look at and see how it can be implemented to the new challenges that are coming in the future.
Yeah, and I also want to make a remark here that if you really want to make a contribution in your working group to the migrant entrepreneurs, try to think as an entrepreneur what he or she needs, and don't try to present a program what you think is the most idealistic way of dealing with it. Yeah, so ask yourself, would I make use of this service if it's being offered in this way? Or would I make use of this kind of service that you offer? Is that needed for me?
Yeah, that's a good point. We also have to deal with something else, which is the EU institutions and this kind of very technocratic and evidence-based thing. So the more evidence we can bring about the practices that works, then it's much easier to kind of translate it into the policy jargon. Joanna, you want to?
I want to ask you, because you asked me also something about indicators, because that's the new phenomena. Everybody wants to have indicators.
Yeah.
You can only talk about indicators if you define what you want to achieve with your business development services, or your client development services, or your enterprise development services. If you cannot define it, you can also not measure it.
Mm-hmm.
And often only one indicator would be then enough if you really are clear in why you want to offer this service.
Can I ask you something, Klaas? Do you think the idea of thinking of what are the most common indicators used, thinking of the different models and the different types of business development services, is that something that could be useful for the institutions and could be useful in kind of guiding what you are doing, or it's really so tailored, should be so tailored that doesn't make sense to think of what can be, I don't know, I don't say indicators, but categories of indicators. So what would be the
if you have it, let me try to answer your question. If you have an entrepreneurship development program and you train 30 people, and at the end 20 have the capability of starting a business, and if your goal was to offer entrepreneurship training to get people into business, then you have to measure only the number of people that have started in relation to the number of people that have entered the program, and nothing else. If your program is to inform people about my financial program, then the only indicator is how many people have you informed. If you want to say, to effectively know what they have done with the information, you have to measure how many people, after have been informed, have applied for a loan. But if you cannot define the goal of your program, there is no need to define an indicator.
Yeah, I think that applies to everything, no, to all kinds of programs, including financial inclusion, etc.
And often we measuring activities and not outputs of our activities.
Or even further the outcomes, no, but that it's even more complicated.
Yeah, that's more complicated. You have to go into longer studies, but already saying, well, so many people have attended and so many have completed, I think, that is already more output related than just attended.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say that that could be like a joint set of indicators for the BDS, which would also lead maybe to kind of more systematized view on on what BDS is, because right now, we can bring the ASI BDS pilot that was finished. It was pretty small. It was €1 million. There were a few institutions that got involved, but that kind of gave a spark to kind of having the discussion about the business development services. One of the comments that was done by during the FI Compass was that there is really not one business development service. So there is a trend to kind of standardize, right? So of course, like if we can, from the perspective of the practitioners, bring something that helps in the standardization, and then bring some maybe good practices for that, then is something that could be helpful. But my question is, does it make sense, or we should just leave it? We should just map the business development service providers. We should just map the services and kind of leave it, because there's still not much of the abuse kind of that. It's generally done with the subsidies, or is paid a little bit by the the sector is still relatively small for that. But when it grows, of course, there is additional risk. And
I agree with you. The type of services that can be offered is quite it's a varied range. It can either be training, but you have group training, you have individual training, you have self-learning, you have counseling, coaching, and mentoring. There are different things. So each activity could have its own goal and its own indicator, but you cannot have just indicators for business development services if you have not really defined what you talk about. Yeah, and that's what I want to warn you for. Don't treat business development services as one panacea.
Mm-hmm.
The same as with financial services. You have loan services, but you have also insurances. You have guarantees. So your KPIs must then be related to your service that you're offering and the goal of why you're offering it.
Perfect. And so just a follow-up question from my side. So did you see any map of business development services and their providers? Was the research done on that, or it's something that is not existing yet?
No, the mapping I've never seen. And I think that would be a very interesting activity to try to map out, and with the new internet-based ways of dealing with transfer of information, counseling, coaching, peer-to-peer assistance, your map will probably be different from a map that would have been drawn 20 years ago. But for instance, peer-to-peer, there's a lot of peer-to-peer going on the internet, but it can be somebody based in South Africa assisting somebody in France. Yeah,
true. Very true.
But it's peer-to-peer counseling. But it also I have done today is a peer-to-peer counseling for a survival activity or for a growth-oriented enterprise. So you have then to make a three-dimensional matrix.
Indeed. And I see the question or comment from Martina that said that we should look at migrants also from other points of view, not only as people who are escaping from something that we need to integrate, but also the employees for EU companies that are experiencing difficulties in finding people, and this will continue. That is true, because the population is aging, right? So that's
very clear, important. Actually, I'm engaged in a program for the UNCDF on remittances, and one of the points that I brought up is that you have to make a stratification of migrants and refugees and people who travel. You have first, and second, and third generation migrants. You have refugees. You have knowledge migrants. You have people who are temporarily traveling to a country. And each of them have different ways of getting engaged in economic activities, either just in employment or in self-employment. So this is a very important point. You cannot just treat them as one group, which we tend to do.
Indeed, we do. Even if you're trying to find the perfect definitions which exist there, we kind of, when we're referring to this group of stakeholders, we kind of tend to very generalize how we are approaching them. So Klaus, thank you very much. That was very interesting conversation. Thank you for agreeing to share your vast knowledge with us and summarize it so well. I think there will be a lot of follow-up questions. I know that I have some because I'm going to definitely grill you more on this KPIs and how the indicators could look like, because it's something that I know that it is an interest of the policymaker. So if the recommendation would be negative, that we should not do it, we probably also will need to explain why this doesn't make sense.
Let me give you one advice. If you want to talk about KPIs, try to define them from the point of view of the entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Because he or she must decide whether the service received is valuable to him or her. So I think the best KPI would be the number of satisfied clients.
It's true, but if we take
Not
it
the number of people who got a loan.
Yeah, exactly. That was my follow-up question. What's about the indicators? If we're trying to do it for the service provider, the financial institution, they would look at something different, completely different than the satisfaction of the entrepreneur. They would look about some viability of business. Of course, the MFI have more social mission, but it's also something that that they still remaining the financial institution at the end.
What I have been doing in some programs, I let people pay for the business development services. And I let them sign a contract with the business provider, where it was linked to the financial program. So they had to pay about, say, 10% of the value of the services. And if they would not be satisfied, they would not pay. And we would co-finance the other part, but the entrepreneur would decide whether he or she would like to continue. Mm-hmm. Which was a very good indicator of satisfaction, and also of satisfaction with the services rendered.
Thank you very much. I don't know, any more question to Klaus? Any comments? No, I don't see anybody on raising their hand. So maybe just because we have 10 more minutes, I will show you a little bit of what this group has been doing. So in numbers, so we have because that should be done as a beginning of the presentation, but unfortunately it skips us. So you also can be proud of yourself, because in the numbers it really look impressive, the work that has been done. So we have 2 regional networks. We have a 70 plus organization that was engaged in different and individuals in the different meetings and conversation that we had as this group so far. So we have 25 MFIs that we identified that have actively engaged in the business development services, and 10 plus MFIs that have refugees as clients. And also the visitors of this group was 17 representatives from the UN, EU, and the World Bank Group. This is something that Klaus, you probably mentioned. So it's like how the business development support is being a kind of seen, so that we have to look at the pre-departure and then reception and then reintegration and long term. This, I think it's also going to lead a little bit the discussion of what should be done if we are looking at the business development services. And Klaus, I would really appreciate if you can share your PowerPoint presentation, or just a few of those slides that were about the client development services and the business development services, because that would be very much. And this is something that as MFC we did as a part of the mapping of the sector and the willingness of the sector to engage with the migrants and refugees as the client. And I'm just sharing it with you because I think this is a pretty interesting kind of indication. So the MFIs do have plans to support migrants and refugees, as you can see, but there is also a need for funding, right? So there is a different type of funding that should be considered if they can pick up this, if they can service this group much better. And also as you can see, there's some of the MFIs already have it as a part of their strategy, or they're currently considering it, but a lot of them is still not considering it, and so that's why we are trying very hard in this group to kind of change the perception and to discuss the different possibilities. So for the last things, maybe to just let you know what are the plans for this group. I think for all the conversation that we have on the different levels, we would like to work on the recommendations. And of course, this year we dedicated the working group and its activities to the business development services. So the recommendation would be part of the business development service. If you want to support in any shape or form, I will prepare a draft document that if you feel like contributing, that would be very welcome. And also, I would like to hear from you, and maybe that will be something that will be coming as a part of the next survey, of what parts of work or topics you find interesting and you think for your work relevant, and that you would like to kind of continuing working with us on. So I think that's it from me. And just to let you know, as a follow-up to this meeting, there will be recording, because we recorded everything. There will be short minutes that will be also including the links to the relevant documents that has been mentioned. I will include the PowerPoint presentation. If Klaus agreed to share his presentation, I would also include his parts into it, and then there will be probably information about the next meeting. So I don't know, any last famous words, Joanna? I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe you want to also add some.
Yeah, sure. No, just from all the conversation and particularly listening to Klaus talking about all these resources, I was thinking where, and I think Andre asked about it, exactly where can we find them? Because it seems that there is a lot of available resources, but it's probably not as easy to get hold of everything, no? Because some are on the MN sites, others will be on OECD, etc. So something to think about, and how can we support also in understanding what are the relevant resources and where they are, or how can we facilitate the access to them. So something for us, I think, particularly
it's a very
to
good
think
point
about this.
I think maybe we can do some compendium, like already on the website, we're trying to update it, and maybe this is also maybe a good moment to say that John and I are working on the platform to kind of have a relevant resources that can be clustered there. So definitely, if you have any resources that you think that should be shared because of the relevance to the discussions that we have here, please send it my way or Joanna's way, and then we will find an appropriate place that everybody can have access, and there should be also used for when they're needed, not clustered in some very relevant research project by the European Commission.
Yeah, no, and I think here, I mean, the FinDev Gateway as resources on refugees. I know that they were in a process also of refurbishing their own site. I'm not so sure if they have all the European resources that Klaus mentioned, but I think between the different institutions, I think we need to find a way that does not reinvent the wheel again as well, and we are not kind of repeating what else is doing, but find a way of making it easier for people to get access to those resources.
Exactly. Perfect. I think this is all for today. So thank you very much for this hour. This was really nice seeing you all and talking to you all. Thank you for your comments and reaction.